Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience as we get started here today. We want to welcome you to what every architect and engineering executive should know about AI, presented by Action Associates and PSMJ Resources. My name's Alex Prentice, and I'm thrilled to have with me our presenters today, Paul Prickett and Mike Kaufman. Before I turn things over to our hosts to introduce themselves and get us started, I just want to cover a couple quick housekeeping items. First, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at any time by submitting them through the Q&A box in your control panel. We've reserved time at the end of this webinar to answer your most pressing questions. Second, you'll be receiving an email following this webinar with all of the resources from today's presentation, which will include the recording, the slide deck, and an evaluation, which will include your certificate of participation to submit for continuing education credits. PSMJ is an AIA continuing education provider. This webinar has been approved for both members and non-members. By attending, you'll earn 1 learning unit hour. If you're an AIA member, PSMJ will submit those LUs on your behalf once you've completed that evaluation. Just make sure that you include your name and AIA number for us. To receive credits outside of AIA, you can simply submit this to the appropriate licensing board. And with that out of the way, we can get started. I'm happy to turn it over to Mike and Paul to kick us off.
All right. Mike, you want to throw the presentation up?
Absolutely.
Thank you,
All right, Paul,
everyone.
if you could just go ahead and share your slides again, we will be all set. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. We got started a little late, but we're going to push through this to get through as much material as we can in the window that we have. A brief introduction to Action to start with. Action is, Mike, if you go to the next slide, Action is one of the largest ERP VARs in the North America space, right? So we're a partner and a value-added reseller dealing with not just the Deltek product base, but a number of other products in the construction, architectural, engineering, and professional services, as well as manufacturing spaces. We're roughly a $90 million company. Like a lot of the world of architectural engineering, we have been growing through the last 20 years through acquisition as well as organic growth. Through that time, we've partnered with a lot of professional service leaders and developed some internal lean processes that we currently use for our delivery processes as well. As I mentioned, large company, a little over 300 employees, over 8,500 customers at this point in time. So not only are we a provider of technology solutions, but we also have our own data centers. So we provide our own managed infrastructure as well as hosting solutions for a number of our clients. I want to introduce us real quick. Mike is been in the IT space for about 25 years. He has been leading our managed infrastructure and cloud services division for quite some time now. Myself, I have been in the professional services space for over 25 years, and I've been working specifically in the ERP space for a little over 10 at this point in time.
Hey, I'll jump in here, Paul. I think we wanted to kick this off by sharing full transparency. Was AI used in the creation of this presentation? Absolutely. We think it's important to always be transparent when we leverage AI for big and important communications. AI assisted, but it didn't author this, right? We used it to accelerate our research. We used it to help flesh out concepts. I'm sharing this because transparency builds trust, and we want to share that with you and make sure that that practice is well ingrained as well. This is exactly how AI should be used to elevate, to not replace folks. So with that said, I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. And we focused on concepts that we thought would be useful for executives in the A&E space, right? So what AI is, how it works, what it's not. We're going to talk about its current evolution and where it is in that evolutionary cycle. We're going to get some good industry buzzwords and definitions out there for you. Talk about some of the people that are leading in this space. We're going to help you get started with AI strategy. What does it mean to not get started? What's a risk there? What are some other concepts that you want to embrace as you start out on that journey? And then what are some really easy things that you can get out there, get some quick wins? And we'll wrap up with some time for Q&A if we have it.
Right. So the first question really is what is AI? I actually asked ChatGPT this, and this is what it gave back, which I thought was a pretty good definition of computer systems designed to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. And the thing that's important about this sentence is that it normally require human intelligence. It isn't intelligent in the way that we understand intelligence. It is replacing or optimizing or even leveraging what it's already been given. So it's really, really good at pattern recognition. And it's really, really good at, as a result of getting lots and lots of data, of then making predictions based on that pattern recognition. And that gives us the ability to understand language. And when I say understand, I don't mean understand the way you and I understand language and we listen to each other and can really have a deep understanding of the conversation. It's just understanding what the symbols and the patterns in a language structure really means. And out of that is how it generates ideas. So they aren't really fresh new ideas. They're extrapolations of what it has in its input systems. Or they're actually, other ideas that it's kind of kicking back and reformulating in a new way. And AI is already something that we deal with on a daily basis. As you're typing on your phone or on your computer, you're getting suggested typing. That's AI. You're getting movie recommendations, whether you like them or not, from Netflix or Amazon and other places, and that's AI. If you get a notification from your bank or from your credit card that the charges on your system are suspicious, that's an AI system that's actually found those and kicked those out to you. So those are, examples of where it's already live and in the works in our world right now. So the basic fundamentals of how AI works start with machine learning, which is sometimes just called ML. And the best way to kind of think about this is instead of giving a set of instructions to a computer that says, this is how you recognize a cat and this is how you recognize a dog. What it does instead is that we feed millions of pictures of cats into an AI system and millions of pictures of dogs. And we clearly identify this is a cat, this is a dog. And as a result of that, it analyzes them and it does pattern recognition to be able to figure out what it thinks the things that it believes are identifiers for cats and dogs based on those pictures. When we give it a new picture and say, what is this? It compares it to that analysis that it has built based on all this pattern recognition it's done. And it will kick back and say, I think this is a cat, or I think this is a dog. If you'll notice at the bottom, if you're in ChatGPT or just about any other AI tool, one of the things that is at the very bottom is after it produces a result is a thumbs up or thumbs down or yes, no, or some way of voting to let it know that this was accurate. That's important because that is continually feeding the system to let it know, yes, your pattern recognition was good. This gave me a good result, or it wasn't good and it didn't give me a good result. The next layer beyond this is neural networks. So what neural networks are is kind of simulating how our brain works. We think about computer processing these days, and we're thinking about big complicated chips would make really complicated decisions, but that's not how our brain really works for the most part. And our brain actually works on the basis of making very small decisions and then moving to the next one and the next one and the next one. So making millions and millions of very small decisions very, very quickly that stack up into a larger decision. That's how neural networks are built as well. And so the way that it functions is very quick, but it also can analyze lots and lots and lots of things as a result of doing that.
So some of the things that AI is not. It's not a mind. It's not sentient. It doesn't wake up in the morning with fresh, new, spontaneous ideas or inspiration to go out there and take on the day. The artificial in artificial intelligence means simulated. So it mimics intelligence through this pattern prediction that Paul's described so well. it can make mistakes, right? It can be wrong, and it can be wrong in confidently spectacular fashion in ways that have become famous, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. But it's a tool, right? It's here to help make humans more productive. I'd say some tasks will automate. We have agentic AI that's out there, actually working towards goals. But overall, it is not a replacement for humans wholesale. The real risk in AI isn't that it's going to become too smart and replace us all. It's us not figuring out how to use it properly. Using it poorly or without oversight can create some problems for us in a number of different ways. So we just say the greatest potential here is augmentation. It's really helping us be more productive. It's elevating us, not a threat to human worth in any way, shape, or form.
And to actually expand on that a little bit, I mean, the thing to think about when you're thinking about what AI is and why it's impressive, it's not that it knows anything in the human sense, but it can handle vast amounts of data and discover patterns and things that we wouldn't see because we can't look at data in the way that in that kind of numbers is the way AI can. So where are we in the development cycle? As I mentioned, we're already dealing with it on a daily basis in what we do in and out of our world. The question, if you talk to most experts about how you define where it is in its development cycle, is really about how it scales. How much data can you put into it, and what kinds of data that can you put into it, right? And right now, what we're putting into our AI is very narrow, and it's actually called narrow. So we only put in generally text or images or audio. We aren't combining all those things together. And we're actually only asking very specific results. And so we're not getting a general response back. We're getting some very narrow things that are coming back. But the growth to this, even in this small world, has been exponential. As an example, generative AI in its first 2 years got to almost 40% adoption across the U.S. The internet took 5 years to get to that space, and PC took 12. And ChatGPT got to 100 million users inside of 2 months. I mean, this is vast, insane growth rates, but it's still very, very much in its infancy.
So AI, and you'll hear this concept, repeated through our presentation. AI is a pattern recognition machine. That really is its DNA. Understanding through the ingestion of vast amounts of data, how to recognize concepts, features, qualities. So just like a drug trial or a medical trial, the more data points that you have, the more accurate the results of that trial will be. Similarly, AI feeds on these vast amounts of data to become, what the solution, the effective solution that it is. Where is it excelling? Translation, and if you found yourself in a situation where you needed to have language translated from one to another, that is happening very rapidly for us now, even with meeting sit-in AI that can translate on the fly during a virtual meeting. Medical images are ingested and analyzed by AI. It can actually, because of its vast library of data and the features that it's learned, it can actually spot anomalies that the human eye might not spot, even small anomalies. So, and in terms of weather patterns and prediction, again, it can lean on all of this historical data to help us, with more accurate weather prediction, run simulations across these giant data sets, and help us predict in better ways. So, all of these capabilities really amplify human effort. They give us the ability to take that analysis and make important decisions around it. People can see bigger pictures, they can think more broadly, and they can explore more possibilities than they could before. And it also gives us the ability to reveal trends or patterns that might not have been discernible by humans before. So we can find connections, we can find insights. They help us make better business decisions. They help us make better project decisions, and they can help us, improve anything from strategy to scientific research.
Yep. So, we talked about where it is now, and let's talk a little bit about where it's going. So, obviously, this is all prediction, but it's expected that within the next 5 to 7 years, the shift from sort of pure narrow and tools, which is where we're really using AI right now, will move to a functional teammate type function. So, you and I will have a AI teammate that will work with us possibly through our entire day or maybe just at our home. And then we have a different one that works with us at work that helps us and assists us with both gathering data and helping to provide insights and information to help us make decisions and help make things happen. To get to that, we need to get to what is termed multimodal. And in multimodal, it's not only just an input of text, but it is an input of kind of everything. So the AI systems will have access or be able to take in text, image, sound, anything that you can think of as an input source, and it will not only be able to take all these things in at once and use them in its analysis, but it will also understand nuance. The difference being, right now it can do a translation of this conversation and of this webinar, but it doesn't understand whether when I'm talking, I'm angry or I'm authoritative or I'm shy. It just knows what the words are. And when we get to multimodal, it will have that capability. You'll also see that it's already starting to happen. So this is not a tough prediction, but you'll see it'll be embedded into everything. Pretty much everything you do will have an AI function or tool inside of it, unless what you're doing is entirely manual, like picking up a number two pencil. The question to all of this really comes, and it's really going to have to be looked at over the course of right now, as well as into 5 and 7 years, is ethics, governance, and safety. Because as a planet, as a country, as a business, as a people, as a person, we need to figure out what's reasonable, what's responsible inside of this. Who owns the data that AI is generating? Who owns the data that actually it's analyzing? How do you give it access to those things? Those kinds of decisions are going to be very, very important for us as a populace that's working with AI and as it continues to grow. If you go beyond the 5 to 7 years, there's this concept of general intelligence that a lot of people think that we will start to see the glimmers of or the start of. And general intelligence being that is the point where it actually becomes the ability to self-recognize, think for itself, those kinds of things on its own. There are plenty of experts who say that's not feasible, it's not possible. So this is sort of a holy grail that the AI world is striving towards. And the prediction is that if it happens, it'll probably happen in the next 10 to 15 years, maybe faster than that. But again, we're so far off in the distance at this point with something that's in its infancy. It's really hard to say.
So we'll jump into some common terms and industry terminology and some definitions to get kicked off here. So deep learning is really kind of a description of the depth of a neural network. So Paul earlier described the operations of neural networks, these simple mathematical models that take some input, perform some analysis or transformation, and then make a decision or pass output on to the next structure. Deep learning really just refers to how many layers of those simulated neurons are within a particular network. And what's great about having those complex structures, made up of these simple units, is that it can handle this chaotic data, like satellite images, like building information models and handwritten notes, all of the types of things that might be tough to correlate by a human are readily analyzed by AI. And it doesn't just refer to the number of layers here, but we also talk about scale, right? And Paul again has mentioned a number of times like the vast amounts of data that it takes to train these guys. Deep learning thrives on scale. The more data that is provided to it, the better it becomes. And you can think of that like a BIM model, a basic sketch. You can only ask it a few questions and get certain details about a building from it, whereas a fully fleshed out model can provide every aspect of a particular structure.
So
So
that
go ahead.
So the term generative AI, I'm sure you've heard before. It's a very common term that's out in the news these days. And it's essentially the things that you hear about ChatGPT, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Claude, are generative AI systems, right? And what they're basically doing, most of the ones that you hear about right now are built around text, like ChatGPT. So they're creating new content. You ask it a question, you give it an input, and it produces new content. But it can produce that new content as text, as images, as drawings, as code, as design concepts. It can produce it in many different ways. So what it's really doing, again, at the end of the day, is it's synthesizing, as we talked about, all of this information that it has to come up with an answer to what you've given it that's a result or a new result of something that it's trying to create. Again, it's all doing this like an assistant. It's not on its own. You have to ask it and tell it what you want it to do, and then it'll give back what it thinks is the right answer to that question, which may or may not be helpful. Um, which then brings us to the large language model, which is really the foundation of ChatGPT and where all this kind of data conversation or this text conversation is coming from. Um, so uh, uh, um, it's really a system that is analyzing giant amounts of text. It isn't all the text on the internet, but it is a lot of the text that's on the internet that's being used as the foundation for these. And a good way to think about how a large language model works is to think about it as a Chinese library. Imagine a library where all the books are in Chinese and there's millions and millions and millions of books. You can't read Chinese. You can't speak Chinese. It's completely foreign to you. So you hire a librarian to help you manage all of this stuff. And the librarian also can't speak Chinese or read Chinese or really understand what's in those books. However, you give it a set of sort of instructions, things like if you see this set of symbols, look in this section. If you see these sets of symbols, give a response that looks kind of like this in these types of symbols. And then someone hands you a slip of paper, which just is all written in Chinese that you hand to the librarian. And the librarian then goes and performs the work based on the instructions it's received and looking at all of the symbols that are out there. And then gives you back something. And because it is so much data, it looks intelligent, right? It looks like something that is, and it is valuable, but it also can be very wrong, right? It is not recalling facts. It is creating something out of patterns and structures and things it's been told. It's not actually going out and saying, oh, well, this is a true thing, because it does not understand the difference between whether something is true or not true. It's just doing pattern recognition, which then leads to the thing that everyone has read about.
The hallucination. And that is, in AI terms, when a model returns an answer that sounds absolutely factual and is actually completely untrue. And so we probably remember that a couple of years ago, there was a legal firm in New York City that crafted a brief with the assistance of AI. And the AI knows what case citations should look like. It knows the structure of legal arguments. It knows what characters and words should come after what characters and words, and ended up completely fabricating all of the cases that were cited in the brief. Well, the judge didn't recognize the cases in the filed brief and did his research and found that that was the case, and it was kind of exposed as a great failure of AI, or in this case, I would suggest potentially of the way that AI was used. As we said earlier, one of the big risks is not using AI with proper discernment. So classic textbook case of hallucination, but also of a misuse. So another item that I'd like to talk about is parameters. Sometimes you'll hear that a model has 70 billion parameters, and that's an important data point. It's not just marketing. A parameter is a numeric weight inside the model that influences output. So, for instance, in Paul's example earlier, we feed millions of images of cats and dogs to figure out whether something is a cat or a dog. Within each of those images is a feature or a quality that might be analyzed. Oh, the ear shape is triangular, or the snout length is smaller, or the body size is smaller or bigger. Each of those features gets a weight in the analysis, and the weight determines how heavily that is considered when making the judgment, is it a cat or is it a dog? So scale matters again. The number of examples that are provided with absolute definition as to what they were allows the AI to make better judgments and analyses in the future because it has that vast store of parameters to work from. Uh, Training data, again, this vast amount of data is so important. And as AI developers were working to improve their platforms, they had to figure out ways to get this fuel into the AI so that it could learn and become a more effective solution, a more effective platform. And the fuel is key. Feeding good data in, it gives you a much better shot at getting good results out. There was an example in 2016, Microsoft put an AI called Tay out there to interact directly with Twitter users. The internet being what it is, the Twitter users figured out that they could send, nasty, hurtful, inflammatory tweets at Tay, and within 16 hours, Tay had to be taken down because it had started to reflect that type of language. So it's a great example of bad data in, bad data out. Finally, fine tuning. So there are a number of tools out there kind of built for general AI use, right? But organizations are looking to have something that knows them a little bit better. So taking a tool that was originally designed kind of as a general tool and then training it on the internal data of an organization. And for your firm, it might be your CAD standards or certain types of structural connection details, zoning codes, what have you. So training the AI on the data that you have within your network, within your enterprise, can give it expertise or give it the ability to provide solutions directly related to the way that you do business.
Which ties right into RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And actually, this is more often just referred to as RAG. So this is taking that kind of system of taking private systems and then combining them with public data. And this is something that then can be used internally, but it produces real results. And so the example here, of which of our past hospital projects used precast curtain wall systems and what were the size tolerances, that's the type of thing you would throw into an AI system using RAG, and it would not only give you an answer, but it would give you back the specific documents and the drawings and such that showed that, which is then makes AI not only much more useful in a business term, but this is where it actually turns into something that becomes safe, traceable, reliable, and truly usable in a regulated industry because it's structured by the input that you are giving it.
So I feel like we have snuck some prompt engineering instruction directly into our presentation here. Paul just provided an excellent, very specific prompt that you might give an AI to get a desired result. A prompt is really just the question or request or instruction that you give the AI. And there is a whole science around properly constructing those in a way that provides you with the most desirable results from the AI that you're interacting with. So not throwing something out there as generic as give me a good idea about buildings but actually being very specific and intentional about what you ask and the result that you expect here listed with a lot of detail. That is the way to optimize use for AI. So agentic AI is really surrounding a little bit more goal-oriented processing of AI. So generative AI has the ability to analyze and to predict. But as we move into the agentic AI phase, running from agents, we really have AI that's focused more on goals. So if we provided a prompt, for instance, that said, "Hey, create some massing options for a site that meets certain zoning requirements, maximize daylight, and target lead gold. The agent will independently go out. It'll pull the site data. It'll create design variations. It'll run energy and code analyses. It'll eliminate things that don't match your requirements. It'll continue to iterate improvements, and then it will return a set of results that maybe with viable schemes, maybe with some additional documentation. It's not waiting for step-by-step instructions within the request. It's actually going out focused on the goal that you provided it and performing some independent steps to deliver a result.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the major players in this space. In the big tech leaders, none of this is surprising, right? It's the Google DeepMind, Microsoft, Meta, which used to be Facebook, Amazon, Apple. The only kind of new name in this space is OpenAI. They're the creators of ChatGPT, and they are now major players in the technology space and the big tech space as well, because they've grown so rapidly due to what's been happening in this function. So some of the other ones that you're going to hear for cutting edge and startups, there are literally millions, or probably millions at this point, of startups that you're going to hear about. But some of the big names that are out there right now: Anthropic, Cohere, Mistral AI, AI 21 Labs. They're getting a lot of news at this point in time for some of the things that they're doing, and some interesting things to just kind of look at. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about them today, but.
So, hey, and I can't help but jump in here when the hardware comes into play and talk a little bit about the folks that are leading the charge here. NVIDIA, you've probably all heard of, their graphics processing units, usually used to be a highly treasured item for gamers. It turns out that that type of processing unit is better than the traditional CPU for AI because it handles, millions of small transactions, tiny transactions, kind of mirroring that neural network that we discussed earlier. Intel and AMD are making a play to be competitive in the space, and then the software backend is being lifted by Oracle, IBM, and Salesforce as well. They've got some great tools that are helping lift the solutions as well.
And in the science, biology, and robotics world, which isn't very relevant to the architectural and engineering space, but it's good to kind of know that these names are out there because they may start playing in the space or have more influence on the space as we move forward. Again, DeepMind, which is Google. Recursion Instro, which is doing a lot of drug discovery work. We're doing with machine language. And then Boston Dynamics, which is Tesla, and robotics and autonomous systems, which again may have some bigger plays in the architectural and engineering space as we move forward. So all of this leads to, what do you do with this, right? What's the strategy that you want to take when handling AI? And as any good business, the first question is always, well, why do we need to? What are the risks if we don't? And that's a really good question, because if you don't start with understanding whether or not it's really necessary, then you can be running off building something that really isn't important or taking it in the wrong direction. So the risks, if you don't have an AI strategy, are pretty deep and pretty big. The first one is competitive displacement. Again, the technology is already here. As we talked about it before, you're already seeing it in your own tools and systems. Your competitors are using it. If you're not using AI and using it in a way to make your business better and deliver better solutions for your clients, your customers will, or your competitors will. And I know this is a threat that a lot of people hear in many different pieces of technology over the course of time, but I want to give an example that I actually lived through. I worked for a company in the late 90s called Book Crafters. They were a small book manufacturer that did specialty books, children's books, things with complicated pressings. They weren't, millions and millions of pressings, but they were small and complicated pressings. And the challenge they had is, as technology had moved forward in the late 90s, all of their competitors created the ability to do quoting while either someone was on the phone or they could get a quote back in 24 hours with to be able to do, to quote their book. Book crafters still did it by hand. They felt it was important to take the time and do it very carefully and do it by hand. And so it took them a week or more to produce a quote. What happened was, relatively quickly, by the time they produced their quote, what they were finding is their customers or their potential customers had not only already received competitive quotes from a half dozen other competitors, but they had actually picked the solution they were going with and signed the contract by the time Bookcrafters actually got the contract to them. Within 3 to 4 years of this, Bookcrafter closes doors. 50 to 60-year-old company, been around, family generation, really great product, really well known in the industry, was no more because could not get new business, right? This is real. And we are facing some other pieces like this as we move forward. The professional services world is one of the fundamental pieces is hourly billing. We've been doing this for years. And the problem with that is as we become more and more efficient using AI assistance and tools and functions, the hourly billing rates either need to go through the roof, which people are going to freak out about, or we're going to start cutting our own throats and not be able to receive as much revenue as we can, even though we're providing the same services. And so there's a shift that is going to need to happen in most of the professional services world towards value-based billing and not hourly billing, right? And the other part of this is just business perception. If you're not keeping up with modern technology, your clients aren't going to look at you the same way as they're going to look at somebody who's actually using it and leveraging it and making better decisions with their AI technology.
So, in addition to some of those external pressures, there are some internal pressures. Your best and your brightest are definitely in tune with what's going on in terms of AI development and adoption across the industry. And those guys are pressing. They're putting upward pressure on leadership to have a strong AI strategy, to make some adoptions, to make some inroads with efficiency. And if your idea around AI is let's wait and see how this pans out, those folks who are ready to start adopting or who probably are already using AI in ways that may not be officially sanctioned, they may consider going somewhere else. And that can be a big problem because as you start to lose some of your best talent that's so forward and future thinking, you can lose some internal culture. You can certainly lose some institutional knowledge. There are some real risks associated with that. Additionally, companies that have been in business for a long time, they've perfected some of their internal workflows and operating procedures. May believe, hey, we can stand on our success. We've established a name in the industry. We can continue trading on that. Just like the book crafters, example that Paul just gave, operational inefficiency can expose you to the margin pressure that is definitely coming. So AI can make you faster. It can help you go to market more quickly. It can help you get quotes out more quickly. But the flip side of that is if other folks are doing that and your organization is not, or organizations who aren't, can find themselves, with shrinking margins, and not because the market changed, but because they chose not to evolve with it. So there's also the potential for higher liability exposure. AI can help with QA and QC. It can help with preventable design errors, code issues. There are a lot of places where AI can actually help reduce risk. The failure to adopt it can be a risk of no strategy. And I think the other thing here is data without direction. As a firm, it is almost certainly the case that you've developed a huge body of work. You've developed solutions, potentially, innovative intellectual property that if you could figure out new places to leverage solutions that you've already used in other places, you can give yourself a head start on new projects. Humans don't always see the similarity between those projects. If the AI can help find a situation where you can leverage existing work to give yourself a shortcut, that can be a huge benefit. And overall, having the ability to query that body of work for knowledge, for additional project details, this huge resource is something that could be under leveraged in your organization without the use of AI to access it. So overall, I think Paul and I would want to communicate to you that AI is moving ahead. It is happening, and it's probably happening in different spots in your organization, whether you're leading the charge or not. It makes a lot of sense to be in front of it and to be taking advantages of some of the productivity gains and efficiency gains that you can see with AI. So I guess I'll add here a few things to consider as you begin to get started with your AI strategy. it's important to figure out what is the benefit? Where is it going to create value for our firm? And there are a number of things to consider. Is design automation a spot that'll be most beneficial? Is it the creation of documents? Is it analyzing risk or interfacing with clients? Whatever it is that matters most to you is a great place to say, let's start here and start seeing some gains quickly. How do you adopt safely and responsibly? You got to put rules around it. We've seen the proliferation of AI in different organizations where in any given meeting, who knows what AI note taker is going to show up? Without some control, without protection of data, without some policy around its use, how our organization believes AI should be used, and more importantly, how it shouldn't be used, that's a really important question to address as you roll it out to your organization. And then once you've decided on those things, it's also really important to figure out how do you scale it across the organization, because while there are certainly people within every organization today that are taking advantage of and exploring how to use AI to make their lives easier, make themselves more productive, there are folks that haven't yet taken that step. And once you've decided on your standard approach, making sure you get the training out there, making sure that you have a standardized way of delivering your expectations around AI to your folks, and then figuring out where it's going to fit in the organization, integrating with your other systems. Those are all key pieces of how to get started here.
So, what do you do after that? Where do you actually, how do you start actually doing something if you're trying to make those decisions? Well, the first part of it is putting together a team. And I can't emphasize this enough. This is not an AI or an IT problem. This is not something that you just go to your IT department and go, well, go figure out our AI strategy. This is a corporate system, it's a business problem, it's a business solution. So when you're assembling a team to start looking at your AI, you want to make sure that you have representation from all of the various pieces, major pieces within your company. Everybody who's responsible for something that needs to be delivered in your company, whether it's to your clients or to your employees. And then when you have the team together, just basically start down and do some basic assessments, right? What are the current tools that you currently use? Like what's your software base? What are you actually using from your technology base that's out there? Who knows about AI? You can do a simple survey across your company to figure out who's using it, who knows anything about it, who's been playing around with it. You might be really surprised at the people who are actually really excited about AI. And then how is it currently being used? Asking a follow-up question of determining, if you're using it here at work, how are you using it? What are you doing with it, right? Just to get an idea of where your company really sits in the IT world or in the AI world. And then take that and then turn it around and look at those tools, your current tools, and start looking at them with their publishers and with the companies that you partner with to figure out what direction they're going to go. What do they have that's capable right now? And what are they going to have in the next year to 2 years that you are going to need to potentially be ready to leverage as it comes out, right? This is all part of putting a strategy together as a basic foundation.
So we've talked about it a number of times during the presentation today. The data is the key. And so ensuring that the data that you have within your organization is ready for AI is a big part of getting started. So a really good way to get your arms around this, figure out where your data, know what it is, first of all. What data do you have that you potentially you want to bring in for query, for exploration, for analysis? And then what format is the data in? Is it high quality? Is it that chaotic data that we described earlier, or is it more standardized? The results are typically better with standardized, even though we can handle that chaotic data. And then where does it live? Is the data connected? Can we get access to the data? Can we centralize, how an AI might access or analyze this data? Are your documents standardized? And if not, it isn't necessarily that you need to undertake the huge project to go and standardize every piece of documentation that you have, but could you put in place document standards moving forward that could help, the adoption or the ingestion of your data? And then we talked a little bit about security and privacy and governance around your AI policies, but what about your data as well? How you don't want it to be the case that someone makes a query of the AI around internal salary data, and then that suddenly becomes a queryable, function of the AI. So understanding, managing your data through the AI is really important. You can get started here small. Figure out the data set that provides the most value to you. Prioritize that and figure out how can we start providing some analysis. How can we, tune AI to give us some real results around that data. And then, of course, you want to get feedback. You want to find out what's working and what's not, and continually tune your data and your processes over time so that you're getting the most out of your AI adoption.
So there's some risks in creating an AI strategy as well, some things that you should be aware of as you step into it. So as I said before, it's a business problem and it needs to be addressed as a business problem. If it's not addressed as a business problem, you are highly likely to fail. As Mike was talking about, understanding your data, right? And then balancing automation and professional liability, making sure that you're not relying too much on AI to make decisions, but you're not also just having the humans make all of the decisions as well. Find a balance that makes sense within your business, within the rules and regulations that you need to behave inside of, and figure that out so that you have some structure to it. Understand that organizational change is hard. You're asking for an organizational change. You're going to go through an organizational change to actually really adopt AI. This is not a technology change. It's a business problem. It's a business change. It's an organizational change to do it. And that's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fast. At the same time, understand that speed of change also is important. You can go too fast through things like this because you can end up making decisions that are hurried, that aren't really thought through. And so you end up regretting them later or going too far down a path without actually really understanding how far you're going down. Take a measured pace to this as you go through it.
And so, one of the things that you might be able to jump right into in terms of a quick win, low-hanging fruit, is to figure out how to automate some of your proposal work, right? And you can have specific libraries of previous proposals that the AI could query and use that to come up with, similar projects or similar quotes. You can have very specific prompts. We talked a little earlier about prompt engineering, right? Making sure that you have that very specific request or instruction for the AI to get that desired result. Well, you can actually set up a prompt where you simply fill in a couple of variables, customer name, zip code, specific desired type of structure, and then run the same query with just those changes in variables so that you get a similar output from the AI every time. And then, of course, every big project requires that you highlight the strengths of your firm most relevant to that project. And AI is capable of recognizing those project requirements and helping you tailor your resume for best win or for best. So you can increase your win ratio. You can improve your sales process, and you can get this out there in a much more efficient manner. So you get business development time back, you get improved hit rate, and you again get to leverage, as we said earlier, some of that knowledge that's lying in your data, and you can do it in an automated fashion.
One of the other really easy things to put in place, which we've done here at Action, is to take a look at an AI note taker. There's dozens of them out there: Gong, Clap, Otter. There's a whole bunch of different solutions, and in a little bit of research, you can figure out what one seems to meet your business needs. But what they're great for is not just recording meetings, but then they provide a summary, they provide a searchable transcript, they create tasks, they generate follow-ups. They give you a lot of basically assistance towards the meeting, towards taking next next moves with the meeting, and sharing that information, putting it into those systems will have a way to put it into a common location that other people inside of your company can review. And that becomes really, really important because then as someone new comes into the company or into the project, they can review the old pieces of information to go find things. They can still mine it. They can still look for insights and information. The return on investment for this is almost immediate because it reduces rework and project ambiguity because you can see the history, you can see what's in there, and it helps to make sure things are much more consistent. It maintains that continuity, as I mentioned, when someone new comes into the project who needs to work on it, they can look at the history before they even listen to the history as well, before they even step forward. And one of the really neat things is it helps technical teams stay focused. They're focused on the meeting and on listening and on providing ideas and decisions in the meeting as opposed to taking notes. Something else is taking notes. What their most valuable thing they can do is to listen and interact. And if they're distracted by taking notes, they're less likely to do that successfully. So it's very, very helpful for increasing the acumen of your interactions with your clients. Now, the one thing to mention about this is that you say, well, I've got I use Teams. That's not actually a note taker because it's not storing it in a common location. It's not doesn't record all of your meetings. It doesn't automatically provide tasks and summaries and all the other follow-up pieces. So yes, it's a tool, but it's not really an AI note taker. So I just want to make that as a clarification. So, we do get to this, as we're getting close to the end of this conversation, when do you start? I stole this from Mike. Mike's favorite thing to say is the best time to start was yesterday. That's not an option unless we build a time machine. Second best time to start is today. And the worst time really is tomorrow. And that's true because if you wait till tomorrow, something else will step in the way as well. I would absolutely encourage you to take some action today in towards your AI journey, no matter where you are. When you're done with this, even if it's just establishing a meeting with somebody else to talk about it next week, take some action coming out of this that keeps you moving forward. If you don't know where to start or you want some help, we can also assist you if you'd like any input or any ideas from us. We'd be happy to talk with you. All right. We do have a little bit of time for maybe one or two questions. Sorry, we ran a little bit long on this. Do we have some?
Yeah, we have a few questions here. We can start with someone would like to know your recommendations for how to decide between individual subscriptions versus enterprise level investments and using what's default in existing software packages. For example, going with Gemini because they're already paying for Google Suite versus contracting for enterprise level like ChatGPT.
So my general recommendation is to start with the small stuff to make sure it works and it does what you want it to do. Once you get to the point where, yes, this is something we want to do on a larger scale, then shift it over to enterprise. If you start with enterprise, you may find that in your process of experimentation, you're ending up with something that really isn't what you want to do. But typically, especially if you're trying to establish a AI, sort of rules and processes across your company and an AI strategy, you're going to want to have tools that are across your entire company. And so you're going to have enterprise level agreements.
Okay, great. And then somebody else is asking, does adding AI change how firms should approach cybersecurity or compliance?
Well, AI certainly does have some risks associated with compliance, ensuring that the information being provided to it isn't in a regulated industry, being released into a publicly accessible, data set. And so making sure that you've got the right agreements and the right protections in place in terms of AI adoption is really important. And in terms of cybersecurity, access to the AI should always be protected. Again, if you're using an internal AI, it has access to a lot of your important proprietary data, and so protecting that access is key. And the flip side is, in my business, we also leverage AI quite a bit in order to interpret signals and alerts and data around cybersecurity. So in a cybersecurity practice themselves, it can be very useful. But protecting that access to a system that might have insights into your proprietary data becomes really important at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. With that, we are right to the end of our time here. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. And thank you so much to Mike and to Paul for such a great presentation. Just a reminder again to please be on the lookout for a follow-up email that will contain the recording of this webinar as well as the presentation slide deck and that evaluation form that will contain your certificate of completion at the end. This will be emailed out to you later today, so just be on the lookout for that. And with that, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to connect with you again in the future.
Right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.